Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey. We talked on the 6M before with the solo episode that it's almost impossible to replace an iconic character. And in this particular instance, we're talking about solo. Of course, we're talking about replacing the one and only Harrison Ford. Well, good luck with that, kids. And if you've seen Solo, I don't know if you loved it or if you hated it, but a lot of the criticism, deserved or undeserved, was that, hey, this Alden Ehrenreich dude, he's no Harrison Ford. Well, no, obviously, he's much younger, and he's got dark hair as opposed to white, less wrinkles, and he's more active. He's physically active. And then plus, again, it's not him. No, you can't replace a legend. That's what I'm saying. You can't replace an icon. You can try. But a lot of times, it falls flat. Someone may look at that statement and say, Tom, what about James Bond? Well, okay. But there's no track record of Han Solos, like 6 Han Solos or whatever the number is of James Bonds. There's no track record of replacing, I don't know, Batman. Every 5 minutes, we got a new Batman. By the time you hear this, we could have yet another new Batman. I don't know. There's no way to know. It's coming, just so you know. So when we did that episode, it got the wheels in my head spinning, and I think we mentioned this actually on the solo episode, that another guy that had an issue with this, maybe not an issue, but going into this project, yes, you've seen the title, Brandon Routh, and this episode is Superman Returns. Talk about a guy that had big shoes to fill. My God in heaven. I can't wait to get into this. I haven't watched this movie in years. Legit. It's been a long time. So we're going to get into it. Superman Returns is a 2006, yes, it's been that long, superhero film directed by Bryan Singer, yikes, and written by Michael Dougherty and Dan Harris from a story by Singer. Dougherty and Harris based on the DC Comics character Superman. It is the 6th and final installment in the original Superman film series and serves as an homage sequel to Superman 1978, Superman 2 in 1980, while ignoring the events of Superman 3 in 83, Supergirl 84, and Superman 4 The Quest for Peace in 87. Some would argue that's a darn good choice right there. This movie stars an ensemble cast. We're going to get into it. Superman, of course, created by the legendary Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. It was released by Warner Brothers Pictures, of course, June 21st, 2006 in Los Angeles, and nationwide release June 28th, 2006. The gross budget, $223 million. It made $391.1 million at the box office. And that is your lowdown on Superman Returns. Phil, we've heard and seen a lot about the Big Blue Boy Scout. I'll get it. In the past several years, thanks to Henry Cavill, thanks to the Snyderverse, my God in heaven, all sorts of wackadoodle stuff going on there. But we don't really hear that much about Brandon Routh, mostly because this was a one and done film, right? When's the last time you've seen Superman Returns, and what's your thoughts after watching it again?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that didn't hold up well the first time, held up even less well this time. There were some things that I enjoyed the first time around that are just like kind of weird decisions when you look back on it. um, I still very much want to like Brandon Routh, though. That is my biggest takeaway. I think Brandon Routh was good casting in a bad movie. And actually, I don't know if I would necessarily say this movie was bad. Because there are good things about it. It's just one of those things. Like, how did this movie get made, though? Like, how did we get sit down in the pitch meeting and decide that this was going to be the main conflict of this movie, and this is where we were going to go with this?
My theory's always been Bryan Singer had that X-Men recognition. That's what I've always assumed was the deal, and that's how this movie got made.
Yeah, Bryan Singer's filmography hasn't aged very well. It's
No.
aged even worse considering the allegations and things circling this guy.
Yeah, and wasn't it that he was supposed to have done X-Men 3 and instead did this? Do I have that
Yeah,
right?
he was supposed to direct X-Men 3, um, but the studio didn't want to wait for him while he finished up Superman Returns, so they brought in
Uh,
Brett Ratner and brought in a new writer to do X-Men 3, which ended up being a complete and utter dud.
really bad.
Really, really bad movie. Yeah.
I'm gonna hit you with something that you may not expect. I haven't seen this movie in years. As I said earlier, I watched it today and did my level best to not think about Chris Reeve, the late great Chris Reeve. Did my level best to not think about Gene Hackman. Did my level best to not think about Ned Beatty. Did my level best to not think about the previous films that we had seen. And I didn't hate this upon watching it again. It's got all kinds of problems, um, but I didn't hate it. Had this been a standalone Superman film with nothing to compare it to, had we never seen Christopher Reeve, I think this thing would have made $1 billion because it would have been like, oh my God, it's Superman. Look at this. Oh, but it was just, whew, where to begin. Um, let me go straight on the surface, dude. Let's talk about the look of this movie. The suit, the muted colors, it's like a blood red cape. The S is elevated on his chest. They kept the trunks, which I'm actually a fan of the trunks. If you're going to do a superhero film, do it the right way, in my opinion. But they kept that. The blue is a darker blue. He still got the spit curl in the front, but the colors of this film are muted. It's like not an airbrush quality, but you know what? It's like a lens or effect happening or something. What do you think about the look of this film? Number one.
Um, I there are bits of it that I think look really good, and I think that's also why some of the creative decisions are so astonishing. Um, I think the suit looks good. I think that there are parts of this movie in action that look very good. Um, I really liked how Superman looked in flight in this movie. I really like how the cape and everything moves when he's in flight. Um, and there's so many things that they do well with Superman's use of powers. But he never punches anybody for this entire movie.
Not one time.
He never punches anybody for the entire movie. But he does so many other things that are cool, like the entire scene with him saving Lois in the plane. I think that's still really good. Every time I watch this movie, I think that's one of the best things about the movie. Um, the whole scene where he goes up there to fight the guy with the Gatling gun and gets shot in the eye and the bullet bounces off still looks cool.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, doesn't punch anybody.
Doesn't punch anybody, and when Lex actually gets his hands on him, he takes him down.
Yeah,
I mean, just about kills him.
that scene is very like traumatic. Every time I watch it, it's just kind of like, all right, this is going a little far, man. You've got a guy from Harold and Kumar like helping stomp him out.
Yeah, isn't he Kumar?
Yeah,
He's Kumar. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He gets stabbed with a shard of kryptonite in this thing. It's very brutal.
Cal Penn, who actually served in Barack Obama's White House. Go figure. Yeah. Um, and there an homage is not the right word. So like the first time I saw this film, like in the theater, a third of the way through it, I'm sitting there. I can't remember if I was with somebody or not, but I just remember thinking, what are we doing? Is this supposed to be the Christopher Reeve Superman? Because is this Gene Hackman? What? And for the life of me, Phil, we've talked about this off mic. I don't understand. I mean, homage, great. Tribute, cool. But like, was the direction? Listen, Brandon, you got to be Chris Reeve, man. Hey, Kevin, dude, you got to be Gene Hackman. Like, they're not. He's not playing Lex Luthor. He's playing the Gene Hackman version of Lex Luthor. Maybe a little bit more despicable. But dude, it's
Definitely.
the same plot that he had in the first Superman. It's the same story. Like, what do you think about this idea that you're not really watching their Singer's version of Superman? You're watching, well, what if we made it today and Chris Reeve and Gene Hackman were this age and let's just do it that way?
Yeah. Oh, um, yeah. It very much feels like this is Bryan Singer going. This is the Superman I grew up with. This is the depiction that I enjoy. So just do that, and uh, that's not a bad thing on the surface, but it just got too on the nose throughout the
Yeah.
movie. Um, Again, I don't think that's through any fault of Brandon Routh on his own because I think that he did a good job with what he was asked to do. I do enjoy him a lot as Clark in this movie. I do enjoy some of the things he gets to do with Superman, even though some of the stuff is wildly out of character. Um,
You mean like
uh,
stalking Lois Lane outside of her house?
yeah, there's like that weird scene where her husband is standing over her and trying to see if he's okay, and he's like kind of creepily like looking over her with the X-ray vision, and he's like, "Yeah, she's fine." And it's just
Yeah.
such an uncomfortable scene.
Tell the guy what you're doing. Like I don't know, just say something. Say like she's fine. I made sure she's fine, or something like that. You know, something.
Yeah, is that scene after she gets hit by like this gigantic door?
Yeah, I
I
think
think it's
so.
right
Like,
after that. That door looked like it weighed like like 50 pounds, and it just like comes and slams down her head. I was like, "Oh my god!"
and didn't that guy that was like have had her and her kid in there? Didn't he like ram her head face first into that table? Like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
my god! I'm like, dude, that's a death blow right there. I don't care who you are, you're going down for that. That's concussion at least.
Yeah, no, the way that door hit her, I was like, how is she not knocked out cold?"
Right, of course.
But yeah,
Yeah,
no, he does a great job as Superman here. I think he does a great job as Clark, and I think Kevin Spacey, another yikes, does a
yeah.
great job with what he's asked to do. He's intense. He's a great actor, so he can ham it up and do Gene Hackman if you ask him to. But you've got Kevin Spacey, so why not just let him do his own iteration here?
Yeah, I have to make it clear before we go any further. I'm a huge Brandon Routh fan. I really am. I love this guy to death. Perfect choice, in my opinion, to play Superman for this film. I really believe that. He looks great. He's the right height. He looks the part. It's perfect. Perfect. I mean, to me, if you're gonna go the Chris Reeve route where he's tall and on the slender side and not exactly ripped or whatever, I mean, and he's in great shape, don't get me wrong. Chris Reeve got in great shape. Let's don't forget who trained him. David Prowse trained him. You know, David Prowse, Darth Vader, of course. David Prowse, award-winning bodybuilder during his time. But you know, if you're going to go that route, Brandon Routh is the best guy to play him. I'm a fan of Kevin Spacey's acting. Wasn't a fan of his here. I don't think he's bad, and I know a lot of it's the story. But I remember at the time, dude, reading this thing that like they flew him in to film all of his scenes at one time, and then flew him back out because he was doing a show. And it's like Paul Anka or Frankie Valli or something, a role that he was actually way too old for at the time. But he came in as a favor to Bryan, and because you know Bryan did the usual suspects and all that, so he comes in and films all his scenes at once and then splits. And at the time, I'm like, not necessarily wrong with that, but it kind of makes me wonder how committed was he to this project to begin with? Did he just do it as a favor? Did he care about the character of Lex at all? Did he care about any of this? Like, Phil, you got to believe Brandon Routh's fully invested here because he's thinking. I'm sure they were talking sequels and building franchise and a universe and everything, maybe. But I don't know, man. And again, I'm a fan of Kevin's acting, not a fan of the guy, right? But I'm a fan of his acting. I didn't feel it here. It just felt like a modernized version of Gene Hackman. Is that fair to him, you think, or is that just me the way I'm taking it?
I mean, I definitely think that's the take that he was given to do here, and so it's not off. Um, there were bits here that I think are extremely goofy because they're trying to do the Hackman stuff. But I think the moments where he is actually like intense and he's actually a villain where he's very good. The scene where Superman lands on the island, which so his plan here is to um, take tech from the Fortress of Solitude because,
Yeah.
as you remember, this is basically like a loose sequel to Superman 2. So Lex has been to the Fortress of Solitude. So his plan is to take some of the crystal tech from there and use it to make an island, and he's going to sell the island. Um, and he laced the island with kryptonite.
Right. Right.
Very convoluted plan.
Yes.
And of course, for some whatever reason, because it's linked to Hackman, Lex Luthor, it has to have to do with real estate, because that was like Lex's thing in those Donner movies was real estate. So yeah, Superman lands on this island that's laced with kryptonite and proceeds to basically almost get killed. Um, but I thought all the scenes afterwards where he lands and Lex is like taunting him, and he's like stomping him while he's down and telling me he forgot to look before he leaped, and he's like giving this whole rant about how you took years of my life away. Do we ever find out how you got out of jail, by the way?
Didn't they have that bit in here where they said that Superman was called to testify before the grand jury, or I guess during his appeal, and he didn't show up? So you just let the guy out of prison because Superman didn't show up? Come on, man.
Yeah, I hope that's not the reason. So because Superman was off planet for 5 years, which he didn't explain to anybody. He just left
Yeah.
and was off planet for 5 years. Lex Luthor got away with everything from the first two movies, because the one eyewitness that wasn't there was Superman. That's ridiculous. There were so many other witnesses to everything else he did. The president of the United States was right there.
That's right. He was right
He was
there
right there.
because he flew him down to him. Yeah, it's right. It's
There's
right.
so many other witnesses that they could have called on, but because
Yeah.
Superman wasn't there, he got off. That I really hope that's not the reason he got out of jail. Oh
Oh
man.
man.
Oh,
I mean, 5 years. And listen, there's something else. They never really say in the original movies what year it is. I don't recall. This is 1978. This is 1980. But like, if this is 5 years, that would put this 1985. Technically speaking, this would be 1985. So they never say that, but like the look of the film, everyone's still wearing trench coats and hats, even though it's supposedly 1985. I mean, I guess it fits, but like you said, 5 years. Part of me was going to say, well, maybe Lex Luthor, and I can't do it without saying Mr. Luthor, like Ned Beatty did. I can't help myself. But like this film missed Ned Beatty, Phil. Let's just be freaking honest about it. But maybe you could make the argument that 5 years in prison hardened him, so where he's no longer like the happy-go-lucky guy with the silly scarf and the ascot around his neck, and now he's hardened. But like
oh,
he was in prison in the other films too, so that's not really much of an explanation, is it?
yeah. I mean, the other prison where he broke out with a hot air balloon.
Exactly.
Uh, no, man. I definitely do get the feeling that he was a bit more hardened in this, and he was
Mm,
no longer just the greatest criminal mastermind of our time.
of
He
course.
was he was he now had a vendetta. And like I said, the scenes where he's like beating Superman down on the island are great. Um,
Yeah, they are. They are.
but boy, it would have been nice if there was like some other kind of protagonist that Superman could actually like get into a fist fight with, because yeah, otherwise we just see Lex almost kill this guy, and then at the end of the movie, Lex only gets caught because what does he get caught at all? Because
No, they're on. He's on an
he's stuck.
island with Kitty, and that's how the movie ends.
Yeah, he's stuck on the island. I was like, wait a minute, I got that wrong. I was about to say the only
Yeah.
reason he got caught is because Kitty um, threw the crystals off of that off of the boat, and he tried to stop it. But actually, no, he didn't get caught at all. He's just trapped on that island.
Yeah, so he never got his comeuppance, which is freaking nuts, man.
Yeah,
Like of all the chaos he caused, and he never got his comeuppance.
a lot of very weird creative decisions with this movie.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, for sure. I do like that we had the cameo here. We had Jack Larson, who played Jimmy Olsen in the original Superman Adventures of Superman TV show. He was the bartender with the bow tie.
Yeah.
So that was cool to see him in this. And we know that he and actually Noelle Neal, who played Lois, I think they both cameoed in the original 78 Superman. So that was cool. There's a couple of little nods in here to the stuff. And apart from the, the flat out, let's just do what they did, with Richard Donner's material. Um, yeah, there's so many holes here, dude. There's some holes in this story you could drive a truck through. I mean, we'll get into the story here shortly. Let's go through this cast, though. We've talked about Brandon Routh. We've talked about Kevin Spacey as Clark Kent Superman and Lex Luthor, respectively. Let's talk also about who else we've got here. Kate Bosworth as Lois Lane. I can't wait to hear your opinion on this because I got thoughts. What's your take on Kate Bosworth here as Lois?
I think she looks the part. I think she looks great in this movie. There's parts of it that I like her, but doesn't really feel like Lois in some ways, because it feels like she makes very strange decisions throughout this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't feel like there's any of the I don't feel like there's any of the sass and like the independence that I would expect from Lois Lane, especially from the depiction that we got in the first two in the Donner movies. Like, this doesn't really feel like the same character.
Yeah, I mean, Lois Lane should be the most unpopular person in the building. I mean, honestly, she should be. She should be the most unpopular person in the building, in the whole building, because she's a scrapper and she'll do anything to get a headline and she's relentless and she will never take no for an answer. And someone like that doesn't always rub people the right way, especially fellow reporters working around her for a newspaper. But when I look at Bosworth here, she's too freaking pretty. I'm not saying that Lois can't be pretty, but my God, like she's flawless. Everything about her is flawless. And it's almost like her performance, and this is I'm not dissing Kate Bosworth as an actress. There were moments of this movie when it just felt like there's not a lot of life here. I don't know. It's hard to know what an actor's thinking as they're filming something. Like, was she into this? Did she care about it? Was she? I don't know. I don't have any clue. But like, there's some moments it just doesn't feel like it's. It doesn't feel like it's working for me, man. I mean, that was one of my disconnects apart from the Kevin Spacey stuff. I didn't feel like that Kate Bosworth felt like that she was real um, in this movie at all. What do you think about the dynamic between her and Brandon Routh? Was there enough chemistry there for you between these two?
Yeah, I think they have moments in there where you can see it, but I do agree that sometimes her performance felt a little bit lifeless.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, she apparently was the one that Kevin Spacey wanted. He recommended Kate Bosworth for this role. She'd starred with Kevin in Beyond the Sea in 2004. And let's see, Claire Danes and Kerry Russell were also supposedly considered. Amy Adams was considered. Um, she actually auditioned for this back when this movie happened, but she didn't get it till much later. So there you go. Um, Supposedly, Bosworth studied Katharine Hepburn's acting for inspiration, particularly in the Philadelphia story. I don't get that at all. By the way, kids, if you haven't seen the Philadelphia story, it is tremendous. Jimmy Stewart, I mean, Cary Grant, come on, dude. It's a great classic film. But I don't get that at all. So maybe I'm missing something here. Um, yeah, I don't want to make anything her fault here, dude. I just for me it just wasn't working personally. Um, Frank Langella is Perry White. This was supposed to go to Hugh Laurie, who we all know as House, Doctor House, if you will. Dude, I know Frank Langella as Skeletor from the Masters of the Universe film. That's how I know him. You know, he's fine here. I don't see any major problem. He's very believable. I'm gonna be straight with you. He might be the most believable guy in this entire film, if I'm being honest about it. He feels like a real person. He feels like a newspaper man to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd
Um,
agree with that.
let's see, Eva Marie Saint as Martha Kent. You know, and again, Phil, if we're retconning this, I don't know what we're doing, but like, did we say? All right, so we know she was alive in the first Superman. Did they ever have a moment where that she died? Because I don't recall that. I'm not remembering that. If they did, I
Yeah,
don't
I don't
recall.
remember.
Hmm. But they left his dad dead, so they didn't bring him back or anything. I think she was fine. She's been in Hollywood forever. I think she did a good job. Parker Posey as Katie Kowalski. I'll tell you, when I first started watching this, I kind of just for a moment, just for a moment, I kind of didn't realize it was even her. I kind of forgot that it was her. Um, and I kind of thought just for a minute that it was Elizabeth Banks. Just for a moment, I swear that's who I thought it was. What do you think about Parker Posey here as Kitty Kowalski?
I think she fits perfectly as kind of the kind of woman we would see in the diner films that would be next to Lex.
Hmm.
So I think she was perfect casting. I think they have also done this trope before, um, in those diner movies of like this like kind of ditzy um, girlfriend for Lois that ends up um, taking Superman's side
Hmm.
or doing something to betray Lex. I thought all that stuff was fine, but again, we've seen it in the diner movies.
Miss Tessmacher, you know, yeah, much more entertaining. Valerie Perrine is Miss Tessmacher. By the way, kids, the original review or our review of the original Superman film from 1978 is available in the archives. So you should all go listen to it after this one and see what a startling difference it is in review. So listen to that one, Phil, then listen to this one back to back like bookends, and it's probably pretty surprising the differences. Um, yeah, I was okay with her here too. I like Parker Posey a lot actually, and I thought she was great. Everything that she's supposed to have done, she did it. We mentioned Cal Penn, Sam Huntington as Jimmy Olsen. I think he was fine. I didn't see anything weird. Um, they wanted Sean Ashmore, but Sean Ashmore was in X Men, and he went back to do X Men: The Last Stand. Which, if you're Sean Ashmore, maybe you don't do that. At least here, it would have been a different role. I don't know. I guess either way, it would have been. I don't know. But instead, Sam Huntington got the part. So there you go, kids. That pretty much almost gets the cast out, except for one guy who kind of pops up out of nowhere. Speaking of X Men and Bryan Singer fame, Cyclops himself, Phil, James Marsden, as Richard White, who is Perry White's nephew. This was a curveball. Like the boyfriend part of this, I can kind of understand. But then Clark sees a photo of the three of them on Lois's desk and puts two and two together. Lois got busy, all right? And we thought it was with Richard White, but apparently not. What do you think about James Marsden in this film?
I think it's unfortunate that he got typecast as the straight guy in a love triangle that nobody was rooting for in two franchises.
Oh my! Well
Uh,
said.
I think that's well. I think it's unfortunate because James Marsden is a good actor, and I
Yeah.
think that it positioned him as an unlikable guy in two situations where that shouldn't have been the case. Especially in the X-Men movie because I think that he was perfect casting for Cyclops, and we don't really get an idea of Cyclops' character in that movie in those movies at all, which I think is an insane injustice.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that if you watch both of those movies, it feels like he's just like a stand-in there for people to root against.
Yeah, for sure. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. This guy in these films, for sure. Um, yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere. And listen, if you can recall the first time you saw this movie, did you have any inclination this kid may not be who we thought he was?
No,
Me neither. Until Lex. By the way, a tip of the hat there from Lex. Should they have just left that moment out? That way, the piano scene would have been that much more surprising. Because I kind of think you didn't need that moment with the kryptonite with that kid.
maybe. Well, I mean, I think it's supposed to it's supposed to serve the purpose of swerving Gus because he didn't react to it at first.
Ah, I see. Gotcha.
So if he didn't react to it, it was just to make us think like, all right, well, yeah, he's not a Superman's kid because he didn't react.
And here's something else that's funny, dude, is that this kid has Superman's, he's got his daddy's ability, but he don't have his weakness.
Hmm.
So that's something to chew on.
Well, I mean, is it proven that he's not weak, or was he just trying his hardest to not let on that it was hurting him?
That's a good question, but he looked to be the same the entire time, and he wouldn't know to fake it. He wouldn't know, right? Like
Yeah, I
he
don't
wouldn't
know.
know what's going on. He doesn't know this guy. He doesn't know what kryptonite is. She does, but he doesn't. And you assume that she's never told her son, right?
Yeah, I assume so.
Yeah. Good question though. By the way, we gave Noelle Neal a shout out earlier. She portrayed Lois in the television series. She is in this film, Phil. She is Gertrude Vanderwerth, the lady that Lex had married and dies in the beginning of the film.
When he's wearing like that weird, like Phil Spector wig.
Yes. Yes. And a desk full of toupees and wigs. Yes. Richard Branson cameoed here as one of the engineers aboard this space shuttle. Funny, he actually went to space later on. Pretty sure he came back. I don't have the latest. I think he came back. I don't know. Rich white dudes be going to space. I don't know if they're coming back or not. Phil, you imagine they will. Their money's here. I'm just saying. Um, and then we talked about Cal Penn as one of Luther's henchmen. There's another guy, Australian rugby league footballer Ian Roberts. There you go. Some weird casting choices that don't really make a lot of sense to anybody, but there they are. Um, yes, it is what it is. There's your cast, children, for this film. Uh, we should mention that Jim Caviezel was interested in playing Superman. So he could have played Jesus and Superman in one lifetime. Imagine that. Yikes. That'd have been interesting. Brandon Routh was chosen from thousands of candidates interviewed at casting calls, United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia. He had coincidentally auditioned for Clark Kent in the TV series Smallville, but lost to Tom Welling. There's a great factoid for you. Really fun trivia. I like that a lot. And by the way, Kevin Spacey was the only one considered for Lex Luthor. There you go. The only guy that they considered, the only guy they got. All right. Plot time, Phil. You're going to sit there in that chair that you're sitting in and tell me why this is the best plot of all time. Lex Luthor's plan to steal these crystals from the Fortress of Solitude, throw them in the ocean, destroy 95% of the United States to form a brand new continent. Tell me why this is a great plan from the criminal mastermind, the greatest criminal mastermind of our time.
Yeah, this plan makes no sense. Like, I don't what cuz he plans to use the island to make money and then basically make the continent close to it inhabitable. But why would people move on to a continent that also doesn't seem like it's all inhabitable either?
Right.
It yeah, his plan is just it. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It's unnecessarily convoluted as well. It's like, no, I'm gonna go get this kryptonite tech, and I'm not gonna use it to exploit Superman's weaknesses. No, I'm gonna make an island and use it for another real estate scheme.
Another scheme. The second real estate scheme from this very same character.
Yeah, it just kind of doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm. Because the first one was to blow California off the map. Or
Yes.
to, yeah, that's right. And like create a whole new country or something. And I think, didn't Otis put like Otisburg on the map? Wasn't it Otisburg that he put in there?
Otisburg, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Man, we missed Otis in this movie. Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. Yeah, and by the way, not for nothing, kids, but if any of you out there is like some kind of maniacal despot, some kind of would-be, hell on earth dictator, if any of you out there are professing to be the next Lex Luthor or Thanos, perhaps, I got one word for you if you want to try to take over the country or the world. One word. Ready? Infrastructure. You've got to have infrastructure. Unless your plan is to kill everyone and the only people left are you and your crew, if you're going to rule the masses, you need infrastructure. You know what that means? Civil engineering. You need trash pickup. You need plumbing. You need, retail grocery stores. You need food. You need crops. You need farmers. Any of this make any sense to you? You can rule with an iron fist all day long, but people still got to eat. And people still got to live, and they're still going to have jobs, you would imagine, even if they give all your money to you and your crazy leadership. But like infrastructure, and Phil, to your point, this island thing's uninhabitable, and like it falls apart, right? Doesn't it just start sinking into the ocean, or was that because Superman's lifting it out of the water?
Yeah, once he lifts that big chunk of it out of the water, then it starts to collapse. But it doesn't seem like it's very. It doesn't feel like it's sustainable anyway.
Right. Right.
This big island made out of out of crystal and kryptonite doesn't seem like it's gonna last that long.
It's terrible. I just, this may be one of the worst plots I've ever seen in a film. Forget comic book film. One of the worst plots I think I've seen, because not only have you replicated the plot of another film, but it's basically one that it's unintelligible. I mean, none of this makes any sense at all. None of it. But it's his big bright idea. All right, let me let you book this then, Phil. Let's say same cast. You're the guy in the director's chair, and your idea is to pay homage in some sort of way. What story do you go with here? How do you simplify this where it's not so convoluted with this plot?
I don't know. I guess my thing is, you would think his main scheme after all of this would be revenge. Um, and that's why I'm kind of confused that he decided, all right, well, I know your secret. I know where the Fortress of Solitude is, and I'm just going to use that to help me in my scheme. Why did he just use that to learn more about him and just use that to try to kill him? Why did he need to try and do the island scheme?
Yeah, why not just go after him? And like, I sent you the clip of the pitch meeting. By the way, kids, I highly endorse that YouTube channel. It's fantastic. But one of the things they brought up was, Clark Kent comes back after being gone for 5 years. Superman was gone for 5 years.
Total
I mean,
coincidence.
what a coincidence! Like Metropolis is a big city, right? We estimate it's as big as New York. That right? Of course, that's what we say. The DC universe. Does New York exist in the DC universe, Phil, or is it just Metropolis?
Does it?
I don't know. I assumed it didn't, and that it was Gotham City and Metropolis. I don't know. But if that's the case, it's a big city. Maybe nobody would know the difference. But Clark Kent is connected to Superman through the Daily Planet because of Lois Lane, and he comes back after 5 years. Lex Luthor, as smart as he is, couldn't have put two and two together on that. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
just just another tall guy that has kind of the same build and looks pretty similar. Just he just wears glasses. That's the only difference. Oh, those glasses though. That's it. Can't be the same guy.
Glasses are pretty powerful, man. How about the first time the kid sees him? And I think, doesn't the kid see like a Superman on a newspaper on the wall or something? And he's looking at Clark, and Clark just smiles at him out of the corner of his eye. Like, what a great moment, dude.
Yeah.
Like the kid has figured it out. That's good stuff. Um, so look, we love Brandon. We both agree on this, but I got to hit you with this because I'm curious. And this is not to crap on Brandon at all, because Christopher Reeve, there's no replacing Christopher Reeve. I think we all can agree on that. Not the way he did it. Christopher Reeve without the glasses, standing erect with his hair combed differently, you'd swear to God is a different actor. But him as Clark, hunched over, stuttering, tripping, dropping things because he's clumsy, his hair's a mess, his tie's crooked, you would almost swear is not the same guy in that red and blue suit. Does Brandon pull that off for you at all here? Or does it just feel like the same guy?
There are bits where I think he does it well. Um, the scene where he goes and he disappears and he comes back and they come in and he's just like in there just like eating a Subway sandwich. Product placement. Um,
Yeah.
I think that that is Christopher Reeves all day. Um, so no, I think he does it well in spurts. I don't think we see enough of him to say that they don't feel differentiated enough. But like I said, I enjoyed him as Clark.
I did too. I thought he was good. I just don't know if I see the physical, like him really inhabiting this. I thought he did. I thought he did a good job. I just don't think it's Christopher Reeve level of making me really believe that this is two separate people. And it's almost like his Superman is so subdued. And dude, they even to the way he delivered his lines as Superman, it's that Christopher Reeve delivering one liners very calmly with a smile on his face, very matter of fact, no excitement at all. His voice never gets that loud. It's just Superman, right? He's just chill. Like, I think this film struggles quite a bit with again, what is this film? Is it a sequel? Is it paying respects? Is it meant to be a new chapter? Like, I think you could label it as all those things and more. Going back and reading reviews of this film, Phil, I didn't realize how widely it was received as being a really, really good movie. Some critics love this film.
Hmm,
Right now on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got like an aggregate score of 75%, which
that's
some
pretty
people
good.
might sneeze at that. I don't sneeze at that, Phil. I don't think that's bad at all.
No, it actually is pretty good.
I just didn't remember this getting that much acclaim at the time. Um, Could this have continued, you think? Could you have continued this with this cast? I mean, I don't know, dude. Did it have enough legs? Was there enough here to do another movie?
Uh, maybe. I I don't think you could do an entire franchise riffing off of the Donner movies. I think you would have had to do something different at some point.
Mm.
And so on that level alone, I'm skeptical of it. But I mean, of course, I did, having gone to see it at the theater at the time, I did want to see where he would go with it.
Mhm.
I was interested in what a sequel to Superman Returns would look like. But the further and further I get away from it, I'm like, how would that have worked?
Yeah, I don't know that would have worked either. Is it because of the connection to the originals? Is that why maybe it wouldn't have worked?
Yeah, I think it's that, and I also think that kind of wrote himself in a corner with this thing, didn't he?
Yeah.
Because all right, now you've got this love triangle, but Lois is like hiding a son. um, where do you go with the storyline? Eventually, somebody in this situation has to tell the truth.
Hmm.
um, and now Lex knows so much about Clark that it's almost unbelievable that he couldn't tie all of these things together. All right, it's not just that Clark was gone for 5 years. Uh, the person that we know that Superman cares about the most just happens to also work in the same office that Clark works in.
Hmm.
The connection to the kid as well. All of this ties back to Clark, and it'd have been pretty hard to believe at some point that he never put two and two together that Clark is Superman.
They did leave it wide open, dude, because she's not married to Richard White.
Right.
You see what I mean? Like they left that. They left that there for you. Because, oh, she got married. Well, no, they're not really married. Is what Jimmy Olsen says. I mean, you know, so like you kind of feel like the seeds were there, and a sequel was planned. Kids supposed to have been released in 2009. All the cast was coming back. Bryan Singer was going to direct a remake of Logan's Run. He dropped out in order to come back for this. The sequel had been written, was, quote, action packed, featuring other Kryptonians with Brainiac as the primary villain and Bizarro also considered. The new Krypton, which of course, Phil, is that big chunk of crystal continent thing that Superman threw into space, was going to be a plot device.
Yeah.
They were
So
ready to roll.
so I'm assuming the new Krypton stuff and the Brainiac stuff was going to tie into why Superman was gone for so long.
I think that would have made the most sense, right? Because they didn't really we didn't even get to that bit of this, why he left to begin with. Wasn't that odd? Did that feel odd to you, that explanation that my homeworld? I'm like, dude, don't you know your homeworld blew up? What are we talking about?
Yes, his homeworld, and then the fact that he, of all people, just as Superman we're talking about, would leave and wouldn't tell anybody they was leaving, wouldn't tell
Mm.
Lois, wouldn't. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
And wouldn't he, by the way, wouldn't he have gone to where Krypton was at this point? Wouldn't he have, just to see for himself? I mean, forget the, NASA found, astronauts found something or whatever. Come on. Plus, he needed a ship to get that far. We didn't even mention the ship.
Yeah.
The interstellar ship. Superman's not that powerful after all, kids. So yeah, needed a ship to get that far. We'll circle back to that. But the studio was not happy, disappointed by the film's box office return. They felt it should have, quote, should have done over $500 million worldwide.
It's a lot of money.
A lot of money, especially for that time. Um, yeah, yeah. So no, it It was supposed to start filming in mid 2007, and then it was pushed to March 2008. And then the writers left because I guess they were tired of sticking around. And then the Writers Guild of America went on strike at the same time, pushing it to 2010. And then it just kept getting pushed. So they said, "Nah, we're not gonna do this at all." So there you go. Let's get back to this thing that Superman needs a ship to get to deep space, Phil. I got a problem with that. Why do I have such a problem with that? Crazy.
Well, didn't he need a ship to get into deep space in other iterations as well?
Comic book form, yeah, but have we seen him do it in a film? We haven't to that point.
Um, yeah, I know it was a thing in the animated series. He needed a ship. Um, yeah, I don't know. But then you've also got wonky things from the Donner universe of him uh spinning around the Earth to change time, which doesn't make much sense. But
Yes.
yeah, I don't know. I never really had a problem with that.
Hmm. Um. Yeah. So sequel doesn't happen. This movie's got some holes. There's some problems here. The story doesn't make any sense at all. His reason for leaving, I don't know. I think it could have been better. I think if the story had been, you know, NASA picked up a radio signal and it was from the same coordinates that Krypton would have been.
Hmm.
That would have explained a lot to me. That would have explained, okay, I have to go. Something's out there. But to say, they found fragments or something, like, okay, but you know the thing blew up. What are we talking about here? Like, that feels weird too. So,
Yeah, I mean, I can buy that maybe he wanted to hope that somebody had survived
mhm.
and he wanted to go see, he wanted to go find his home, but um to not tell anybody, that part of it is weird. To not tell anybody that he was leaving. Um but I suppose he couldn't tell Lois cuz if we're taking continuity from Superman 2, he erased her memory.
Mhm.
Um
But she remembered that they had a thing, right? Or does she remember that? Yes, she has to because she knows her kid has powers.
yeah, I think she's like there are hints that she remembers, or at least she like put two and two together. I don't know. But even that part of it is kind of convoluted. Like they hook up even though he erased her memory, but it, I don't know. There are holes there, big holes.
Big holes. Could drive a truck through or fly a rocket ship through because you can't make it deep space, even though your name's Superman. I'm so hung up on that. Um, Fast forward, Phil, to the calendar year 2023, where we are now, and this DC extended universe, which is more of a train wreck than the plot of this film. I mean, it's on fire, right? I mean, we've got Henry Cavill, who is fine. I have no issue with Henry Cavill at all. But like dark and broody Superman, it's the cure of Superman as opposed to Chris Reeves Superman. You know what I mean? Dark and moody. I mean, not for nothing, Phil. Brandon Routh is Superman here, right? I mean, of course, Superman's got to be a good-looking guy. I get it, but like perfect hair, yes. But man, Brandon Routh through this whole film does not look, and he goes through some stuff here, right? But like he never looks like he loses hope. And Henry Cavill, for whatever reason, when I look at him in that role, I just don't see hope. I just feel like and it's not just him; it's the story, it's
Yeah.
it's what's going on around him, right? But which one would you rather have pulling you out and saving your life? Like Henry Cavill looks like if I said something wrong, he might punch me in the face. I don't know. But like Brandon Routh, I'm going to be fine. This dude looks cool. He looks legit. Dude, what a difference. And it's not been that long since this movie came out, if you really think about it. Not even 20 years. But man, look how far we've come with this universe now compared to this film, dude.
Yeah. I like Henry Cavill as an actor. Um, I even think that he can be a good Superman. I just don't think he was given the material to make him a good Superman.
Mm,
Um, I think the motivation he was given, I think what he was asked to do, um, hurt his depiction as Superman in a lot of ways. 'Cause he just was so brooding and just so, I don't know. It's just the thing that's great about Superman is that he is an alien. He's this massive man that shouldn't be able to fit in amongst other humans, but he does
mm,
because of his personality and the things that he'll do to, I guess, for lack of better words, disarm people. And he has the big smile. He has this hopefulness to him. He has all these things that you want to like about him. Even and it makes you look away from the questions you should be asking about him, which is kind of Lex's point about him. It's just like,
mm,
oh, wait a minute, this guy's an alien. He's this, he's that. Why are you guys not seeing anything wrong with this? Just because he comes out and he like flashes a smile at you. Um, but again, that's what makes Superman great. And you don't get any of that in the Cavill version because Cavill doesn't do a lot of smiling most of this movie he's in. Um, he doesn't do any. He doesn't do a whole bunch of heroic things either.
mm.
Like for better
Yeah,
or worse, what you can say about Henry Cavill is he does some very big, like dramatic, heroic moments in this movie.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We should. Yeah, in my head, I'm just going back through all the DCEU stuff. Um, we should mention, Phil, that Brandon Routh reprised his role. There wasn't a sequel officially, but an unofficial sequel. The 2019's Arrowverse TV series crossover, Crisis on Infinite Earths. You know, movies can't get it right, Phil. The TV show sure did. Um, what did you think about his Kingdom Come version of Superman in that crossover, dude? How cool was it to see him back in that costume?
I thought it was great. I thought it was cool to see him doing doing something Superman related again. It's right up there with what Mandalorian is doing with some of their casting choices to redeem some of these guys. Not just Mandalorian, but the Star Wars Disney Plus stuff.
Mhm.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a good way to give fans a nod, but also give the actors a way to kind of tie up unfinished business with some of these roles.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's the whole Infinite Earth things in the DC universe, dude. There's always opportunities for him to come back or do something if he wanted to, or if they wanted him to. Which I'd love to see that in the future. So, kids, if you didn't see that, you should go out of your way to catch this. It's available. Go check it out. Go find it. It's worth your time. Set on Earth 96 in the Arrow universe, this version of Superman has become an aged and beleaguered superhero, similar to, as we said, the Superman from Kingdom Come. He's got a black belt and an S shield with a black background as a sign of mourning after losing his friends and wife, having been married to Lois Lane at some point, to a terrorist attack on the Daily Planet by a psychopath from Gotham City. And that's all they say is a psychopath from Gotham City. He is also similar to another iteration, Cal L, with just the letter L, remained working as a newspaper's editor in chief instead of went into seclusion after what happened, making this Superman an amalgam of the two, as well as being a facsimile to Roy Palmer, who actually Brandon Routh plays Roy Palmer slash the Atom in DC's DCCW shows. So there you go. And during this event, Superman also references his son Jason, which is the name of the kid in this movie, right? So, you know, kind of closing the book, maybe not closing the book, but kind of a nice callback, bringing everything back home, um, making this thing kind of fit after all. And we didn't even mention, honestly, the kid in this movie, Tristan Lake LeBeau. That's his name. What a great name, Tristan Lake LeBeau, who became an actor, well, not an actor, of course, and musician. He was actually on The Young and the Restless. That's how good looking that kid grew up to be, Phil. He's a soap opera guy. They only let pretty people on the soaps. I never had a chance. So, yeah. Okay, and I got to hit you. We've teased this. We've talked about this. What do you think about him being his son? Was that a bold choice, or was that just like, what are we doing here? Does that fit? What's your take on that?
It it's such a weird creative choice for Superman because I you buy Superman making human decisions, but at the same time, um, having this story where Superman disappeared for 5 years and then he comes back and he has a kid and uh, like even the ending of it of him just basically being like, "Oh, well, I'll just look down on you and be a guardian from afar." No, you didn't decide. Maybe I should maybe maybe I should tell Lois the truth that I wiped her memory and like actually like handle all of this like a rational person.
Yeah, because dude, think about this. If the wiping the memory thing still holds, they had sex and then he wiped her memory later. So she don't even know. Like, that's kind of creepy all by itself. And do the math, dude. If he's been gone, listen, if he's been like the actor was born in 99, this film was 2006, so he was 7. But if we're led to believe that Superman's been gone for 5 years, then we're led to believe this kid is 5. He would have to be
Hmm.
because she would, well, maybe not. This kid calls Richard White dad, and we never hear him say he's not actually my birth child, right? Not my birth, like whatever. Like she would have had to hook up with this guy pretty quick after Superman was out of the picture. They don't explain any of that stuff. Very odd. Very odd. So we know what's happening with Marvel and the Spider-Man universe and everything. There's been all kinds of rumors that at some point possibly they could revisit Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and make another film. Possibly Tobey Maguire at some point. It's all, innuendo and rumor at this point, right? Is there a world, Phil, in which you go and make a Superman film? Or is that with this? Or is that just crazy? Would that just something that couldn't work? I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. Would it be too confusing? I mean, as of this recording, Brandon Routh is 43. He still looks phenomenal for his age, especially looks great. But would that even make any sense at this point to even try something like that?
Nah, I think at this point might as well just move on.
Mm,
It would be nice to see Brendan Ralph get something to do in the movies or something, but I think I think at this point the Crisis on Infinite Earths stuff is about as close as we're gonna get.
yeah.
Because I mean, it sounds like they're rebooting the character again for DC for the DCU movies, so
Hmm.
may as well just start from scratch again. I don't see a reason why trying to fix the stuff from the Superman Returns movie. It just probably would confuse people even more. And
Yeah.
these are people that are still, some people at least, still wondering what's going on with Henry Cavill and why they're not using him.
And a couple things, good point, by the way. A couple things here. One, this movie is a real, for me anyway, this movie feels like a really, really odd standalone one shot. There'll never be another one. And they, several years later, whatever the number was, went back and redid the whole thing anyway. Like, I don't know, dude. It's one of those. This doesn't happen too often, Phil. Like where it's big budget, iconic characters, and they never touch it again. Never touch it again until, and when they do touch it, they've changed everything. Like I don't remember the last time this happened, and not for nothing. Batman Begins came out in 2005, a year before this movie came out. I mean, dude, in another universe, we're talking about a DC extended universe starring, Christian Bale and Brandon Routh as the top two leads in the DCEU. That didn't happen. but that would have been cool. Like, this movie's odd, man, isn't it? Like the way it just kind of sits by itself. And I mean, dude, if you're not careful, you'll forget about it. You know what I'm saying? It's easy to forget this film. That's kind of weird, isn't it? It's Superman.
Yeah. It almost feels like an Elseworld movie at this point.
It does. Would
Yeah.
you have been down for a DCEU starring Christian Bale and Brandon Routh? How different would that have been?
Uh, I think it would have been cool. I would have been interested in them attempting to connect those movies at the time, but at
Mhm.
this point, I feel like moments passed at this point.
Yeah. I think there's been a bit of fan casting over the years where like you can see graphics made and images put together, and it's like, oh, this is what it could have been, this is what it could have looked like, that kind of thing. It is what it is. Um, but yeah, it's like I said, man, it's one of those things where like it just stands by itself. Very, very, very unique for sure. Um, so at the end of the day, Phil, where do we put this film? I mean, was it worth it? Should it have been made? Is there enough here to look back on fondly? If it had never been made, would you have missed it? Like, I don't know, dude. What's your take on that?
I wouldn't say that I don't think it should have been made. It fits in a very fits in a very odd time period for comic book movies and Warner Brothers. Um, I don't. There are bits and pieces of a good movie in this thing. There really are. There are things I enjoy about it, but at the same time, I just don't know how this was made. I don't know how Bryan Singer went into a meeting and pitched this movie, and they were like, "Yep, we're gonna greenlight that." I I just don't know. Maybe they greenlit it off just the name Bryan Singer alone because he was successful with the X-Men franchise, because those movies made money, and they were just hopeful that they could just get the Superman franchise back off the ground again. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't say that it shouldn't be made. I just wish that they would have gone a completely different direction with it.
Yeah, I'm with you. The whole thing feels crazy. It's hard for me to put into words. And dude, to your point about this movie having odd timing, this will put it in perspective for everybody listening. Dude, 2 years later, Iron Man's released.
Yeah,
That's odd timing if I've ever seen it.
yeah. I mean, I just think the landscape of filmmaking at the time was changing. I think that because of the X Men films, comic book movies were more lucrative than they had been, and so it was a good time to attempt. But I just wish they had gone in a different direction with it. That's
Yeah. Instead of an homage, just do something. Yeah, just bring him, introduce him for the modern age, and yeah, do something different, do something new. I guess, but yeah. Well, there you have it, kids. For better or worse, there's Superman Returns. And look, again, not a terrible movie. Let's say it. Not a terrible film at all. It's goofy. There's parts of it that make no sense, like the entire plot. Just call it like it is. But the casting's not bad. There's some good things, like you said. There's some good things about this. So yeah, again, a very very odd moment in time, at least for me. So let's try to take this thing home, Phil, if you can. Give me your last word on Superman Returns.
uh, Superman Returns is about as dated as it comes right now. It's definitely a relic of that time period. Um, I like to think that somewhere, someone learned the right lessons from this. I don't know. No,
Hmm.
man, you would think it's not that hard to make a good Superman movie. But the fact that people are still trying to chase the magic of the Donner movies kind of tells you that maybe it is. Maybe it's hard for at least executives to get it right.
Well, if there's a company that can get it wrong, it's DC and Warner Brothers. Let's be honest, because they've swung the bat a bunch.
Yeah.
They've got more at bats with these characters than I could have even thought possible at this point in time. So, yeah, talk about snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. 100%. They're kind of infamous for that. So, kids, if you haven't seen this movie, is it worth your time? Well, if you're a comic book fan, watch it. If you're a fan of the original Christopher Reeve Superman films and you've never seen this, I think there's enough sentimentality here, enough nostalgia that you'd get something out of it. Brandon Routh's worth watching this film if for no other reason, because he's very good. Again, I think he was the perfect choice. This
Yeah.
movie's got a lot of problems. It is what it is.
Yeah, it's an entertaining train wreck, if nothing else.
Yeah. You won't want to turn away from this one. You'll want to have popcorn and just watch it. So it's not so ghastly it can't be watched.
Yeah, now, if you're one of those people that doesn't want to support the work of like Kevin Spacey or Bryan Singer, I also understand that.
100%. Yeah. Maybe fast forward through Lex's parts. You won't miss much. He's real mean, and he rolls his eyes a lot. And he's not Gene Hackman. So there you go. I saved you some time. But we'll see what the future holds for these characters. I'm anxious to see what James Gunn does. That's a whole other slate of podcast episodes for this little show in the next 5 to 10 years. Can't wait to get there. I'll be honest with you. If they're going to hand it to anybody, we'll see what Gunn does with it. Anxious to see. But in the meantime, that is Superman Returns. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.